So what's going to happen is that the prosecution will submit a sentencing memorandum, the defense will do the same, and the prosecution will argue that there are aggravating circumstances here. The prosecution, I think, will argue that there is evidence that in facts that the jury heard, which are related to the crimes that he was convicted of, that indicate that there should be prison time in this case.
Gan Deal just shattered the silence, and the shockwaves are ripping through the entire hip-hop industry, from New York penthouses to LA studios. Behind velvet ropes and encrypted group chats, the elite are freaking out. Why? Because one of Diddy's closest former insiders is spilling everything people have only dared whisper in private. This isn't some bitter ex-staffer with an axe to grind. Gan was inside the machine, witnessing it all firsthand. And now, he's pointing a direct finger, not just at Diddy's empire, but at two of the most explosive allegations in...
They did not want East Coast rappers to get big. They were suppressing all new artists that was coming out of New York. Jay and Diddy was doing it.
Music history. Gan claims Diddy wasn't just adjacent to the human trafficking network that's now under federal investigation. He was deeply entangled in it. But that's just the beginning. What sent the scandal into overdrive is Gan's shocking statement that Diddy may have had a hand in orchestrating one of the most tragic and defining moments in hip-hop, the murder of Tupac Shakur. If what Gan says is true, this isn't just career-ending, it's oath-shattering. The conspiracy theories weren't just theories. They might have been facts all along. The accusations? Absolutely.
That's one reason, other than the Irv Gotti that 50 was going through and the poison they was putting in about 50, he had to go elsewhere to California or with Jay and not with Dre and Eminem to get a deal.
Absolutely explosive. Gene Deal isn't beating around the bush. He's gone on record over and over again, swearing that Diddy was neck-deep in both FBI dealings and the criminal underworld. And according to him, those two worlds didn't just coexist, they collided in dark, dangerous ways. If Gene's telling even a fraction of the truth, we're not talking about a celebrity who just lost his way. We're talking about a man who engineered an empire built on surveillance, fear, manipulation, and blood. Deal doesn't paint Diddy as someone with secrets. He paints him as a secret itself. The center of the chaos. The puppet master who made sure every dirty move came with a layer of deniability. And now...
is that New York rappers was getting 80 to 100, 800 to 1.2 million, or some larger than that, and sign with labels back then.
All these years after gunfire lit up the Vegas Strip and Tupac Shakur was taken from the world, the chaos Diddy once controlled might finally be turning back on him. The storm isn't brewing anymore. It's here. And if Gene Deal is right, then Diddy's legacy may be built on a lie. The stakes? Absolutely massive. Because these bombshell allegations aren't being whispered on some forgotten podcast. They are slamming headfirst into real-life courtroom drama. Federal prosecutors have already stunned the public by revealing that a key witness, listed as Victim 3 in the superseding indictment, has vanished. Not hiding, not off-grid, gone. No address, no phone activity, not a peep from her lawyers. And that silence, it's deafening. According to court documents, she wasn't just another witness. She was armed with explosive testimony, detailing years of coercion, underground parties, and secret recordings allegedly orchestrated by Diddy himself. This wasn't just damning. It could have been career-ending. But now, that evidence may never see a courtroom. And behind closed doors, people are asking the one question nobody wants to say out loud. Did someone silence her? Or worse, did someone make her disappear? We're not the only ones asking questions. Legal insiders are now comparing this to a Ghislaine Maxwell-style operation. Except this time, it's decked out in designer suits and platinum plaques. Former employees are even calling Diddy's longtime chief of staff the Maxwell of music, alleging she was the one who scheduled escorts, managed substance-fueled events, and balanced hush money payouts like a mafia bookkeeper. Court filings are darker still, detailing freak-offs, film sessions where women were allegedly forced to perform while Diddy watched and recorded, using those tapes as blackmail. Victims claim Diddy weaponized that footage, threatening to release it if they ever stepped out of line. And then there's the raid. One federal agent allegedly said they recovered over 1,000 bottles of baby oil, not just creepy, but evidence of an industrial, well-oiled operation. But the temperature's rising fast, because Gene Deal isn't the only one cracking under pressure. Enter Suge Knight. From behind bars, stripped of everything, he's now speaking up, confirming key parts of the long-whispered theory that Diddy put a bounty on Tupac Shakur's head. Suge's prison statements aren't just shocking, they're aligning with unsealed court documents from the Shakur case. Diddy's name appears over 40 times in a secret police interview with Keith D., the final living suspect in Tupac's 1996 shooting. Keith didn't mince words. He claimed Diddy didn't just talk violence, he demanded it, allegedly saying, "I'll give anything for that dude's head," referring to Shakur, to Suge, to whoever stood in his way. It was said publicly, in front of dozens. Then, days later, Tupac was gunned down in Vegas. The timeline is chilling. Diddy, of course, has always denied any involvement, calling the allegations baseless and pure fiction. But the receipts are piling up. Prosecutors now have tapes, transcripts, and witnesses. And suddenly, nobody's laughing. As the trial gains momentum, dots are connecting. A former LA detective says Keith Diaz's confession should have sold this years ago, but money, fame, and silence buried the truth. Now that dam is cracking, and what's leaking out is massive. If even half of this is real, Diddy didn't just protect his empire, he may have controlled law enforcement from behind the scenes. Gene Deal says that's exactly what happened. According to him, Diddy has allegedly been an FBI informant for years, feeding agents selective intel to shield himself from collapse. And those rumors about missing witnesses, vanished files, and silent accusers? They're not looking like conspiracy anymore. They are starting to look like strategy, a power play executed over decades with deadly precision. And now the machine is breaking down in real time under the weight of its own secrets. But Diddy's not the only one being watched. So is Gene. Sources close to Gene say the heat is on. He's already claimed he's received multiple threats, and one recent incident allegedly involved a physical attack that looked a lot less like a random mugging and a lot more like a warning. But if the goal was to shut him up, it failed spectacularly. Gene isn't backing down. If anything, the danger has made him louder, bolder, and even more determined to drag this to the bitter end, no matter how many powerful names he has to take down with him. Even if it means burning bridges and naming every last name he once vowed to protect. Gene Deal says is ready. And now, insiders are whispering that more former employees may step forward, but fear they'll end up like Victim 3. Let's talk about her. She was supposed to be the prosecution's trump card, ready to expose everything. The who, the where, the how deep this thing really goes. She even told officials she'd testify using her real name. And then, radio silence. She's gone. She's no longer in New York. Her legal team won't answer calls. The feds can't find her, and prosecutors have now admitted they may be forced to move forward without her. Think about that. A woman who claimed she could tie Diddy to decades of abuse and federal crimes vanishes before the trial even begins. Some say her disappearance could collapse the entire case. Others argue the opposite, that if Gene, Suge, and Keith D are telling the truth, we're not dealing with a missing witness. We're looking at a man who built a billion-dollar empire in the shadows. Diddy's team denies it all. His lawyers are calling the freak-off consensual, the mansion footage irrelevant, and the victim's stories misinterpreted fantasies. But the prosecution isn't backing down. They say the footage, the testimonies, and the NDA trail tell a very different story, one that ends with life in prison. Because this isn't just tabloid talk. This is hard evidence, the kind that shatters careers, collapses empires, and sends people away forever. And the deeper the feds dig, the darker it all gets. Because the missing witness? She's just one twist. Federal agents now claim Diddy used jailhouse phone systems to contact outside operatives, allegedly tampering with witnesses, using code words, three-way calls, and unauthorized access. This wasn't panic. It was a plan. And prosecutors now believe they aren't just up against a reckless celebrity. They are hunting the architect of a criminal machine, a multi-decade web of control, coercion, and cover-ups. One official called it R. Kelly meets Epstein, meets Hollywood. And the scariest part? The government hasn't even played all its cards. The most damning proof, the stuff that ties human trafficking to old-school LA violence, might still be sitting in hard drives, wiretaps, and sealed witness statements. Suge Knight, still behind bars, is reportedly ready to testify. He says what he knows could obliterate the Diddy image forever. And when Keith D was asked if Diddy feared Tupac, he didn't flinch. He said Diddy didn't just want him gone. He wanted his head. After Shakur's death, Diddy allegedly ran into Keith's crew. Witnesses say he avoided eye contact, nervously scanning his surroundings, not even acknowledging the girls around him. He was tripping, shook, like a man haunted by what he started. So here's the real question. What else is he scared of coming out? Because according to 3 former employees who once worked inside Diddy's Miami and LA properties, there's something more. Something even bigger than anything we've heard in court. They call it the Vault, a password-protected archive filled with digital tapes, encrypted files, and decades of date. Not just shaky iPhone clips or fuzzy CCTV, but meticulously kept blackmail material, secret recordings, and footage collected like currency. Stored, organized, weaponized. If that vault is real, and if the feds get to it first, this isn't just a fall of a hip-hop mogul. It could be the unmasking of one of the darkest power structures in entertainment history. These weren't just home videos or random surveillance clips. No, what allegedly sitting inside Diddy's vault is nothing short of the holy grail of blackmail. Evidence collected at those infamous freak-offs where phones were snatched at the door, NDAs were tossed out like wristbands, and no one left without leaving something behind. On camera. What's in the vault? That's the billion-dollar question prosecutors are desperately chasing. Former bad boy insiders whisper that it holds everything from celebrities breaking the law to powerful execs, athletes, and even government-linked elites caught in compromising acts. And we're not just talking about participants. Allegedly, there are victims too, some reportedly underage, others too intoxicated to consent. Some, like Victim 3, who may have been ready to take the stand, until someone reminded her just how easily that vault could be used to obliterate her life. But the filth is already spilling. One former producer who toured Diddy's LA mansion in 2017 described a server room hidden behind a locked studio wall, guarded by tech guys who didn't look like they worked in music at all. The message? This wasn't about creativity. It was about control. And if any of that is real, even half of it, we're not just witnessing a scandal. We're staring into the face of a surveillance-based empire, where data was collected like currency and silence was bought in blood. Because if that vault ever gets cracked, or worse, leaked, Diddy won't fall alone. A-list names could tumble like dominoes. Which brings us to Cassie. She wasn't supposed to say a word. Not with a $5 million NDA allegedly in place. Not with years of psychological damage. And definitely not with Diddy's legal firepower watching her every move. But she broke the code. And when Cassie spoke, everything changed. Her story wasn't just about abuse. It exposed a whole system built on grooming, manipulation, and exploitation, where power was traded for flesh, and fame was used like a weapon. She talked about how victims were isolated, threatened, paid off, and discarded when they outlived their usefulness. Her voice cracked, but she spoke anyway. And that courage shattered the silence that had protected Diddy and the culture he created for decades. She named names. She provided receipts. And her lawsuit, though settled, set the investigation in motion. Because Cass's bravery didn't just go viral, it opened a floodgate. Federal agents moved in, search warrants flew, raids were launched, and whispers about the vault turned into legitimate leads. And now, with prosecutors reportedly preparing to put more victims on the stand, insiders say Cassie may have lit a match that can't be put out. But it came at a price. Friends say she's been isolated, phone numbers changed, emails hacked, and constant fear hanging in the air. Diddy denies it all. But the timing? It's got people asking serious questions. And she's not the only one under threat. Gene Deal keeps talking. Suge Knight is still pushing his narrative from behind bars. And what they are saying now isn't just about Diddy. It's about the entire system. The code of silence. The fame for obedience exchange. A culture that groomed artists, promised stardom, and delivered trauma. According to Gene, Diddy wasn't some rogue actor. He was a blueprint. And while prosecutors keep digging through the mountains of seized evidence, one federal source dropped the most chilling detail yet: external drives labeled by date and initials. This isn't just evidence. It's a catalog, a time-stamped, digitized roadmap of Diddy's entire empire, a blueprint of what he built and possibly what will take him down. If those freak-off tapes exist, and if anyone in Hollywood was caught even brushing against one of those sessions, they are terrified. Because if that vault leaks, it's not just Diddy's brand that shatters. The fallout could scorch fashion, sports, politics, and the highest levels of the entertainment industry. Reports say Diddy's inner circle wasn't just artists and assistants. It included A-list celebs, executives, and big-money political donors. And if even a fraction of those whispers are real, we're looking at a multi-industry domino effect. The FBI has already confirmed that the investigation crosses state lines and sector boundaries. This isn't just a celebrity case. It's a reckoning, one that's been delayed for 2 decades. And at the center of it all, a man who once danced in furs and sunglasses, now clutching a water bottle in court, trying not to fall apart. Diddy has pleaded not guilty, and with his fortune, is mounting a top-tier legal defense. But no lawyer on earth can erase a vault if it surfaces, and no defense is strong enough if victims keep coming forward. Word is, he's facing 15 to life. And insiders are already asking, will he flip? Will he start naming names if it means shaving decades off his sentence? Because at 55, doing 15 years means walking out at age 70, if he walks out at all. And now, the feds are watching his every move, every whisper, every call. For years, industry insiders floated a theory prosecutors never confirmed out loud, that Diddy's real power didn't come from fame or fortune. It came from federal protection. Multiple former agents and 2 ex-associates have claimed Diddy served as a confidential FBI informant, dating back to the early 2000s. The alleged arrangement? He fed them intel on artists, crews, and even drug networks, and in return, he stayed untouched. It was a symbiotic deal. He gave names. They gave invisibility. That may explain why Diddy seemed bulletproof. When lawsuits piled up, he skated. When videos showed violence, he vanished from headlines. While his peers were raided, arrested, or buried in scandal, Diddy floated above it all. So much so, some execs reported he called him untouchable behind closed doors. But now, with Homeland Security at his door and the DOJ breathing down his neck, the whispers are shifting. Did the machine that once protected him finally decide to take him out? Was Diddy no longer useful? And here's where it gets wild. Legal insiders say celebrity subpoenas are coming. Not just rappers, but actors, comedians, people you'd never expect. Names like Mike Myers, yes, Austin Powers Mike Myers, have already surfaced in sealed documents. And while nobody knows why yet, the list is long. The courtroom is about to turn into a circus. But while the rich and famous have PR teams and lawyers, the unknown women who lived through this trauma, they'll need every ounce of courage to testify. So what changed? If Diddy really was cooperating, why is he suddenly in the crosshairs? Some experts believe he stopped providing valuable intel. Others think it's deeper, that the scale of his alleged crimes finally outweighed the benefits he offered. And when that balance tips, even the most corrupt systems decide it's time to cut ties. A source with deep ties to organized crime investigations said it best. Once an informant crosses certain moral lines, not even the FBI can save them. Especially when public outrage hits a boiling point, even the feds can't keep a lid on it. The damage becomes too big, too loud, too dangerous to bury. And that's what makes this twist so terrifying, because if Diddy really was shielded by federal protection, then how much abuse was allowed to flourish in shadows? If agencies turned a blind eye, or worse, discouraged local authorities from digging too deep, then the system itself may be complicit. Survivors who tried to speak up in the past didn't just face Diddy's lawyers. They ran straight into an institutional wall of silence. Now that the curtain's being pulled back, we might not just be witnessing the fall of one man, but the unraveling of an entire network that enabled him. And here's what's truly chilling. The racketeering charges already include allegations of trafficking, intimidation, blackmail, and criminal enterprise. But we still don't know what the grand jury vote is. Everything's sealed, redacted, shadowed, which means the worst could still be hidden in those files, waiting to explode in court or leak across the internet. The question is, how deep does this thing really go? Because if Diddy was feeding information to federal agencies, there's a paper trail. Somewhere in the bureaucratic dock, there are memos, files, logs of who he gave up and when. And if that trail ever sees daylight, we may finally understand how some artists were targeted, how others vanished from the charts, and how justice got manipulated behind closed doors. This may not just be a story about celebrity corruption. It might be a mirror, showing us a rut inside the very institutions we trust to protect us. So we don't end with a verdict. We end with a warning. If what Gene Deal, Suge Knight, and Cassie expose is just the tip of the iceberg, then hip-hop's golden era may be carrying a legacy darker than we ever imagined. The next leak, the next witness, the next raid, it could all bring this empire crashing down. But here's the question, is Diddy just the face of something bigger? Or is he the puppet master of a hidden power structure built on silence, secrets, and exploitation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this story with someone who still thinks it's just rumors. And stay locked in, because trust, we're just getting started. Until next time, stay loud, stay skeptical, and above all, keep your eyes wide open.